Hello. I joined the Marine Corps in I started boot camp in 2005. I signed up originally because I thought it was cool. The war movies that I saw, one of them I think was Black Hawk Down, and I can't think of another movie that kind of like motivated me to really be a part of the service. I wasn't drafted. This is way beyond when people were drafted. So it's just volunteering, and I signed up to the Marine Corps because I remember seeing the commercials and what people would say is that the Marine Corps is like the toughest branch to be in. So I was like, okay, I want to try to choose something that seems like the toughest to choose. But unfortunately, when I wanted to join, I still hadn't graduated from high school. I actually dropped out of high school, and I had to go back to get my GED in order to even sign up, which was interesting because I didn't think at that time in my life that it was really that smart at all. So when I went to go take the GED and I did fairly well in the exam, I was surprised that I passed with the scores that I passed. And that allowed me then to actually join into the Marine Corps. And even at the time, there was the GI Bill, but it wasn't. I didn't necessarily join just for college because I didn't think I would ever even make it in college anyways. I really just kind of thought it was cool to serve the country and to go fight in a battle somewhere. That just seemed like I don't want to say romantic, but it seemed really cool. It seemed like it's just something I wanted to be a part of. I know I joined after 9/11, and even going back to when 9/11 happened, I was working in masonry, and we were having lunch at Applebee's, and all of a sudden, breaking news came on, and there's a plane that crashed into one of the trade towers, and I remember seeing the second plane. They were like, well, no, well, I think so. It was. I think it happened on TV, and it was kind of surprising because then you're like, whoa, a second plane flew into the trade tower. So you're like, what's going on here? This is crazy. The only thing I remember of that time was we were driving back to the job site, and there was a flag that was flying upside down, and my boss and I, we pulled over, we pulled the flag down and fixed it, put it back up. So it was kind of like my first memory of something, I guess, doing something patriotic. This is a couple years before joining, but I eventually left that job, and again, when I went into the recruiter's office, I remember, I couldn't join at the time because again I had to get my GED. Going back to why I went to go get my GED, and eventually I got my GED, and when my date was finally up and I could actually go into boot camp, it was about March-ish when I got the information like, okay, now you can go in, and your boot camp start date is March 14th. So I was like, okay, I got on the airplane. I remember, it was calming, but then we were in San Diego. I think, God, where were we? I want to say it was the USO. It was the USO at the San Diego airport where we were waiting for the drill instructors to come and pick us up. And I was playing chess with another guy, and all of a sudden, one of the Marine drill instructors came in, and right away I was like, oh, all right, it's here it begins. And he wasn't really yelling at that time, but as soon as we got onto the bus, everything got serious, right? We get to boot camp, we get to MCRD, and
What is MTRD?
oh, MCRD is Marine Corps Recruit Depot. So that is, it's right next to the San Diego airport, and there's also, if I remember correctly, there's like a naval kind of like basic or boot camp, whatever, close by as well. But yeah, no, it's like any Marine will tell you, it's like you get out, there's the yellow footprints, you get on the yellow footprints, and the drill instructors are already just screaming in your face. So it's pretty intense at that moment. As I was going through boot camp, I was pretty worried that I was like, man, I hope I can make it. I hope I have what it takes to endure this challenge. But as I progressed through it, I was realizing, I was like, wow, I'm actually able to keep up and do better than some of the other recruits in boot camp, which was really surprising to me. And I didn't think too highly of myself. I thought I didn't think I was that smart. I didn't think I was that strong or fast. I always kind of was like, I'm kind of a below average guy. I hope I can actually do this. But I made it. And on top of that, I was actually outperforming quite a few people in boot camp, which was really surprising to me because I didn't think. I really just thought I was like, at the end of the line. Which kind of brings me to the end of boot camp when I find out what my job is. So the drill instructors were telling everybody, what their jobs were, and I get to Sachwitz, 3381 food service specialist, and it kind of hit me like a bag of rocks because I was just, I thought that I was going to go into infantry again because it seemed, what the cinematic world kind of displayed the military as, like, you're kicking in doors, you're going after the bad guys, hoorah, that kind of stuff. And when they told me I was going to be a cook, I was like, no, I wanted to be like, the guy kicking in the doors. But I made the best of it. I was lucky that cooks were getting phased out, so I was tasked to other duties. I mean, I did do some cooking, but I was tasked to other duties. And looking back on it now, if I would have known what I know now, I probably would have chosen, intelligence. Intelligence seems like a really, really cool field to get into. But yeah, no, I went in there and again, I was always pushing myself to the next level. So much so that one of the stories in the training after boot camp, it wasn't, I don't remember what, there's School of Infantry, but then if you weren't in infantry, you went to another version of combat school. I don't remember what it's called, but when I was in that combat school, we had to go on 3 different hikes. The first hike was a 5K, the second one was a 10K, and the third one was a 15K. And I was, the first hike, because I'm just fresh out of boot camp, so it was real easy. Didn't have any problems or issues. The second hike, I made sure to put everything, the required gear in my bag, and then I put more stuff in there because I was like, I really want to get a good workout. I really want to push myself. And then the third hike, I was like, okay, put all the required stuff, and I filled up the rest of my bag with rocks, right? Because again, it was like, I want a challenge, right? I want to push myself. I want to see what I have, and so this bag was so heavy that I couldn't even really pick it up. I managed to get it on a table to where like I could walk up to it and put it on, and then just kind of walk away. but yeah, I probably shouldn't have put the amount of rocks that I did in there, because immediately, like 5 minutes into the hike, you know, I'm just sweating, you know, and it's I'm already exhausted. And one of the other Marines, you know, looked at me. He's like, "Hey, man, you're looking you're looking pretty exhausted. We just started this thing." You know, and it was, but and for the most part, I was able to keep up, you know. And I think we were about 2/3 through the hike, and I was staying close enough to the person in front of me as we were hiking, or doing this, you know, whatever. I don't even remember the proper name of it. But slowly I started to like inch back, and I couldn't keep up, you know. and it was like the person in front of me just kept getting further and further and further, to where I was like, okay, like no matter how hard or how hard I pushed, I couldn't keep up. So I jumped out of formation. I threw off my bag, and I was like, I gotta get these rocks on my back so I don't fall behind. Now, at the time, I didn't know how close we were to a break, because we took intermittent breaks, and I didn't know when the next one was, but I was like, okay, I just gotta get these rocks on my back. The sergeant, one of the training or instructors that was a sergeant, came running over, and he just starts yelling at me, like, what, you know, I won't repeat the language, but, you know, just saying, like, you know, cussing at me and telling me, like, what are you doing, basically? Why are you jumping out of formation? And I'm like, Sergeant, you know, I got to get these rocks out of my pack, you know. And he said, what? You know, why do you the look on his face of just like, how dumb could you be to be putting rocks in your pack, you know? And shortly after he came, the staff sergeant then came over, same thing. He's like, what's going on here? You know, and I was like, Staff Sergeant, I just gotta get these rocks out of my pack so I can just get back into formation and go. And he looks at the sergeant as if, did you tell him to put these rocks in his pack? Because the sergeant's like, no, I didn't tell him. I had nothing to do with this, right? So the staff sergeant's like, get those rocks in your pack. If the medical Humvee catches up with you, you're gonna repeat the whole training session, so I have to go back to the beginning. And so I got the rocks out, and to this day, I'll never forget how light my pack felt. It felt as if, like, I was picking up a pillow and throwing it over my it felt so light, and I just picked it up one hand, threw it over my shoulder, and I was good to go. And that was good for the rest of that training event. But I did acquire the nickname Sachwitz. So there's only like, you know, a couple weeks, or it was less than a month of this, you know, the non-infantry combat training, and then I remember the first sergeant yelling out, hey, sack of rocks, do you have any rocks in your pockets? So that was where I acquired my first kind of nickname in the Marine Corps, sack of rocks. And then we get over to into the fleet. And we got into the fleet. And then I had to go to my MOS training, which was in Virginia. That was only like a month long, or 2 months long, or something like that. But I just remember arriving into the fleet, California, Camp Pendleton, fall area time. It was like October-ish, and I was already slated to deploy to Iraq the following February, so February of 2006. Which I was totally on board with. And it's horrible to be stateside and be in the Marine Corps. That's rough, because you have motivators that, you know, are constantly on you about something or another. So I was 100% for, you know, send me to the deserts, you know, send me to Iraq. And that's where I went. So so much so that I volunteered right away to do a back-to-back deployment. So my first my first, my first deployment to Iraq was, instead of 7 months, it was 14 months. And then I come back, and immediately, as soon as I come back, it's like I have the mindset of always self-improvement and constantly, whether it's working out or going to school. And that was actually the first time I actually went to college. Interesting enough, I had a really nice professor too, because some of the content that I turned in when I signed up for school and the papers I turned in, it was horrible. It was so bad. But I mean, she was nice enough to basically pass me. But in that time period, I was, because we were going to deploy again. So we'd come back, it was April timeframe of 2007, and we were already slated to deploy out again the following February. So I was like, just every type of training, every type of schooling that I could get into, I just signed up. And I was really focused on, because I knew I couldn't change from food service to infantry. Nobody was being supportive of that. But my next option to get out of food service would be go recon, and I was constantly training for that. So I would again, full combat load and minus my weapon and magazines, which is a lot of weight, but and then I would just go run the hills on Camp Pendleton. Unfortunately, one of the times that I was doing this, I broke my ankle, right? And and this is actually right. So actually, it was in December or January when this happened, because it was in December, and it was right after I ran a marathon. So I ran the marathon in Las Vegas. And I didn't really give myself enough time to relax and, not relax, but rest and recuperate. And I just immediately went out there and started running the hills with all my gear. And one of the times I rolled the ankle, I broke, I don't know what the bone is, but I broke like a bone in there. And I didn't know that at the time. I was like, I just figured I rolled it, and I just, wrapped it up real tight, and I wasn't going to miss out on the deployment. So went off and deployed again to Iraq, and then came back and eventually got out of the Marine Corps. So that's kind of, there's a few more stories in there that I could say, but those are the main ones. After leaving the Marine Corps, I was definitely motivated to go to college. So I was, and really fortunate for me, the post 9/11 GI Bill was getting pushed through and was going to be implemented by the time that I started school. Which was, because I don't think I could have financially made it had I not had the post 9/11 GI Bill, which is amazing.
What is JBOL?
So the post 9/11 GI Bill, what was that? So the GI Bill so the previous GI Bill would just give you money to pay for schooling, right? The post 9/11 GI Bill is they would pay the school directly, and on top of that give you a stipend based off of where you lived. So I was getting a tax-free like housing stipend while going to school, and on top of that I could actually go be a part-time employee at the VA and get additional tax-free money, which was great. So it was very, very financially doable based off of like the way they changed the program. So I was very, very lucky. And at the time, because I got out in so I got out March 14th, 2009, and I joined March 15th, not joined, but I started boot camp March 15th, 2005. I said earlier it was March 14th, but no, I left the Marine Corps March 14th, 2009 at the height of the Great Depression. Or not the Great Depression, the Great Recession, right? And I didn't realize, I wasn't really paying attention, in really understanding the environment that I was going into. Because when I got out, I was like, who's not going to hire a combat veteran, of the Marine Corps? Like I was a little full of myself at that point because I thought, I made it to the Marine Corps. I'm like deployed to a war zone. I'm like, somebody's going to hire me. And I learned real fast. Like I couldn't get a job anywhere. Nobody was hiring. I mean, I applied hundreds of positions, and I wasn't picky about it. So that's why, again, I go back to the post 9/11 GI Bill. I was very lucky, because by the time that, because what happens when you get out of the service, if you file for unemployment, you automatically get 6 months of unemployment. Like there's really no questions asked. So I got out, couldn't find a job anywhere, and I went on unemployment. And by the time that ran out, I was able to start my college program. There's a couple courses that I had to take before I could really enroll, because I had a GED, and there's a lot of things I was behind on. But yeah, thankfully I was able to get into the post 9/11 GI Bill, because that really allowed me to both support my family and get an education at the same time, because nobody was hiring. And this was 2009. So we were able to use the VA home loan, or the VA home loan system, in order for us to get a house in Lake Elsinore, California. And again, very, very, very lucky, because we were able to get a house that was basically, it was a brand new house. Originally, it was selling for $500,000, and we were able to purchase it for $200,000 with a 4.5 APR. Which is great. And so again, I was able to get a home, and the mortgage with insurance and taxes all lumped into one. It was very affordable. It was more affordable than any place we could have rented at the time. And at the same time, it's like I could go to school. So I did this for the next 4 years. I finished. Or I obtained a degree in mathematics, and at the same time I was able to work part-time at the VA, and this went up to the end of 2014, where then I was like, okay, what do I want to do now? Where do I want to work? Where do I want to go? So I started looking in the fields of teaching. And specifically just teaching math. So in 2015, I was, again, applying everywhere. And surprisingly enough, I really struggled to obtain a job. Nobody was hiring me. At this point, this is where I was really confused, because it's like, okay, I'm a veteran of the Marine Corps. I now have a bachelor's degree in mathematics, and I still was really struggling for anybody to hire me. Eventually, I was hired on as a substitute teacher with Harupa Valley School District, and they started once they found out that I had initially HR knew I had a math degree. But once schools, high schools and middle schools found out that I had a math degree, they started, focusing me onto math classes, and I started teaching long-term math assignments for high schools and middle schools, and that was cool. And I really, that's where I was like, okay, this is a job I really enjoy. I really go. I understood the material. And I could regurgitate it to the students for them to understand, and it was just the hours were great. Then I did this for a couple years, and then there was a law enforcement opportunity with San Bernardino County. So, while I was working at Hooper Valley, I started my master's program so I could get my certificate in teaching. And that was the avenue that I was going down. But I deviated from that because there's an opportunity in law enforcement, and I didn't want to look back on life and say, I wish I would have done that. So I was like, okay, so I put education and being a teacher on hold, and I pursued the law enforcement avenue, and that's when I became a law enforcement officer I became a sheriff's deputy or deputy sheriff for San Bernardino County. Again, that was a pretty humbling experience. At this point in my life, I was 35 years old. I mean, it was still young, but everybody else in the academy was 25. So, I still had the mindset that I was in tip-top shape, but I hadn't been, really working out as hard as I was in the Marine Corps. So I get into the Sheriff's Academy, and it was the first time I experienced not being the fastest runner or one of the fastest runners. So that was pretty humbling. I was like, wow, everybody's outrunning me, and I'm like, again, I'm not saying I'm an old guy, but I was like the old guy in the academy. I think there's only 2 other people that were older than me, and they were running faster than me, because again, if you go back to the Marine Corps, I was always the the road guard, and I would run circles around the squad that was running. And then I was running marathons too. So it's like coming to this, and here I am, not the fastest runner. I was like, wow, I guess, not as. So it was a humbling experience, to say the least. I get into law enforcement, and it's definitely not the job that I'd want to do, but it was a good learning experience, and I would say the skill that I acquired from that profession was to be able to communicate with any person from any background, because you had to be a salesman, in the sense of, especially if you wanted to avoid violence, right? If you have the gift of gab, that's great. That is the one thing that really helps out. And it was around this time period too that I was also looking for like a retirement home / vacation home, right? At this point, we had sold the house in Lake Elsinore, and now I was looking all over the country. I was like, where would be a good spot to, invest into like a home for my children and grandchildren, and at the same time, someplace where you could retire and relax, things like that. And I was looking for a place that wasn't like Minnesota, because originally I was born and raised in Minnesota, so it wasn't like that, where you had these prolonged winters and they were icy and cold, and then you had the hot, humid summers. But I wanted a place that had a lot of water too, right? And again, I was trying to avoid anywhere that had tornadoes. I was like, okay, what natural disaster is the least thing to worry? Not that it's the least thing to worry about, but what is a natural disaster that it's not as bad as the others? And there's this website called Zillow. It's also an app, but Zillow had a format that it had like a maps, kind of like Google Maps, where I could zoom into it. And I started looking up here in Western Washington, and I noticed all the islands here in the Puget Sound, and I'm like, wow, at the time, living in California, I was assuming that these properties here were going to be like millions of dollars, and there's just no way that I was going to be able to afford anything, up here in this area. And I came across Anderson Island, and I was like, wow, there's someplace affordable, someplace that I can invest into, someplace that I can, that seems like the good spot. And then at the same time, I also read an article. I don't remember the name of the article, but it was talking about if global temperatures continue to rise and they stay in the same pattern, where are the most ideal places going to be to live? And one of them was right up here in the Pacific Northwest and the southern west part of Canada, right? So that this general area was like, I guess, going to be. I mean, who knows how accurate their studies or whatever research they were doing. But I was like, okay, that was kind of like the icing on the cake that convinced me to move here to Anderson Island, or at least purchase property here in Anderson Island. So immediately, what I did was I bought a plot of land in the Riv, and it was only a couple $1,000s. I was like, I was really, really suspicious. I was like, why is everything so affordable? I assumed that there's like, is there some sort of cult out here? Are there like radical, crazy people and the gangsters, or who knows? I didn't know. So we came out here to Airbnb, and I was like, this is an amazing place, and the people are awesome, and I was glad that we made the purchase. And
when did you do that?
Oh, so the land purchase was 2016, I think, because we eventually then we purchased our house in 2017, right before I actually started the academy for San Bernardino Sheriff's Department. We purchased a house July of 2017, and yeah, I think if I remember correctly, we purchased a different plot of land the year prior, and that's when the year prior is when we came out to like look at it and things like that. And again, we saw the house because we were also looking for a house that wasn't big, right? Because we had a really huge house in Southern California. It was huge. It was a 3-car garage, like 3,000 square feet, 2-story. And we didn't use half the house, So we were like, okay, we want to get a house that's single story, because we were thinking like, all right, if we're going to retire here, we want to avoid stairs, right? It seems like stairs are always a problem, so let's just get a single story house, relatively small, so that it's not a hassle to clean. Because cleaning a huge house it took us a full day, whereas a couple hours to clean like a smaller house. So we eventually came out here looking for houses, and we came across the house that we currently live in, and we bought it. In 2017, we were like, all right, let's come up here for the summer, because I was already at that point. I was already kind of slated to start the academy in October. So we were like, well, the kids don't have to start school for about a month and a half. Let's come up here and spend the whole entire summer up here in 2017. That's exactly what we did. So then we went back to California, and at that point, every vacation that we had, we were coming up here. And again, we were just not, at this point, we owned the house up here and we were renting down in California. Because our plan was at that point, sometime in the future, as soon as the kids get through high school, we'll come up here and live for a year to see if it's someplace that we can really, endure all year round. That's not what happened. What happened was in 2019, I had set up my vacation so again, what I was trying to do, I was trying to set up vacations for every part of the year so we could experience like all the different climates of the year of Anderson Island throughout the year. And in 2019, I had set up a vacation for spring break, which was end of March, mid-March to beginning of April, that aligned with the kids' spring break time. And interestingly enough, that's when COVID happened. So when we came up here, it was again Friday the 13th. We left Friday, March 13th. 2020. We drove up here, and the following day everything went into lockdown. Right? What did in California, and various other places, and and we didn't know what was going on, right? It was pretty crazy. We were like, we had no idea how dangerous this virus was, or what it was, or anything. So me and Claudia talked about, since the kids don't have to go back to school, just stay up here on the island. All of our electronic devices had their own cells, so our computers and our phones, it's like they had their own cell service, so we didn't have to, get our own internet up here. So the kids would just continue doing, because it turned to online school, right up here on the island. And eventually, at the beginning of April, I went back to California because I had to go back to work. But my wife and kids stayed up here, and it was a good option because, again, we didn't know what was happening, and what better place than to kind of isolate on the island. So I kind of came back and forth whenever time permitted with the sheriff's department, and then we were talking about, I didn't really want to be in law enforcement, and I was going to stick around for another couple of years just to kind of put my time in, to serve the community, things like that. But we were talking well, maybe this is a good time just to move up to Anderson Island and just try living up there. And what I could do is, hopefully find another job up here, and we'll start over. And then George Floyd incident happened, and the environment for law enforcement was like, well, all right, there's a lot of bad things happening, and might as well let's just start over. And that's what we did. I left in July. I left the sheriff's department, and I mean, at this point, we didn't renew our lease down there. Put everything in storage, and I came up here and we started over. Again, I seem to always kind of be put in positions where I'm always searching for a job. So I get up here, and the first thing I do is immediately I join up to the fire department. And I think it was around the same time period, or it was shortly after that I met Rick. And Rick signed me up with the American Legion. I mean, at this point in my life, the only thing that I knew about the American Legion was that it was a club, and I didn't know anything. Because my mom, she was a waiter, server at an American Legion in Minnesota when I was a kid, and it was at a bar. So the only thing I remember from there is there's what it looked like. Again, I was a kid, a bunch of old guys with beards and looking like bikers, and there's pull tabs, this little gambling game pull tabs. And it was a restaurant, and it had something to do with the military. And that was it. That was all the knowledge I had on it. And then again, they can go back up to here. Rick, sat down and he was like, "You want to join?" I was like, "Oh yeah, sure, I'll join." I had previously already joined the VFW in Southern California, which I'm still a member of that as well. But I joined the American Legion here, and at this point I really started to do my research on what is the American Legion, and surprisingly enough, it's nothing what I thought it was. I really thought it was only like a club for veterans to hang out and, I guess, drink or something like that. I didn't really think much other than, but no, it's an amazing organization that has done a lot of good things for military members and veterans for a very long time. And I didn't know that. Had I known that, I would have joined up a long time ago. And so, and then the other like aspect, to the organization is here on the island, they're constantly doing things. So it's like, okay, this is my way of really, if there's a couple organizations that I can be a part of and I can contribute the most, it would be the fire department and the American Legion. And really, that's enough. but it's oh, where was I going to go with this? So my philosophy about community involvement, it comes from, I would always ask individuals that have lots of more life experience than me, you know, what is something that brings fulfillment in life, you know? And the most common and consistent answer that I would get was, you know, spend as much time as you can with family, and then contribute as much as you can to the community that you're with. You know, try to keep yourself involved as much as you can, and that'll bring the most fulfillment. And that's so true. Right? I can't tell you, you know, being a part of these organizations and contributing and actually just being involved, really, it really is a fulfilling thing in life. I mean, whether I'm going to say that, you know, 40 years from now, we'll see, but I assume I am. And it's like, again, you know, spending as much time with family. But I suppose that's kind of like how I got up to this point. I don't know if there's anything else I can really get into. Well, I suppose now I'm now a math teacher in Clover Park School District. So I'm gainfully employed. I have achieved it. It took a couple years, but you know, I'm moving in the direction that I want to in life.
And you're the communications officer for the Legion.
Oh yes, yeah. So I am the current communications officer. So the year is 2023. I am the current communications officer for Post 265 American Legion. You know, and I wish that I could do more with that. I always feel like I'm never doing enough. You know, that's for sure. That I'm not giving it. It seems like there's always more that you can give into something, but I gotta, you know, take it easy on that. So.
Well, thank you for your service, Gabe.
Oh yeah, thank you. Oh yeah, thank you for letting me serve. It was fun.
Thank you.